You are going to marry me, whether you like it or not. You are going to marry me, whether you like it or not.
The basement smells like expensive cologne and fear. My fear. His cologne. I'm sitting in a leather chair that probably costs more than my car, hands-free, door unlocked, but I know better than to run. Lorenzo Moretti stands 6 feet away, perfectly still in his 3-piece suit, watching me with those storm gray eyes that have haunted my dreams for 6 months. There's blood on his crisp, white collar. Not his blood. Never his blood. The fluorescent lights overhead cast sharp shadows across his face, highlighting the brutal beauty of his features. Sharp jaw, Roman nose, lips that smiled at me across candlelit tables, and whispered promises I was too afraid to believe. 24 hours ago, I told this man no, refused his proposal in front of half of Manhattan's elite at the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom, walked away from the 3-carat diamond ring he'd chosen specifically because I once mentioned loving emerald cuts. Now I'm here, wherever here is. Some warehouse in Brooklyn, maybe. Queens. Somewhere his empire reaches and the law doesn't. "You're not tied up," Lorenzo says, his voice carrying that slight Italian accent that makes everything sound like seduction or threat depending on his mood. Right now, I can't tell which. "I want you to understand something, Isabella. You're not a prisoner. You're a guest. Guests can leave," I manage, my voice steadier than my hands. "Can I leave?" His silence is answer enough. He moves closer, each step deliberate, controlled, predatory in a way that makes my pulse race for reasons I don't want to examine. When he reaches my chair, he doesn't touch me, doesn't need to. His presence alone fills the space, overwhelming, inescapable. "Do you know what you did last night?" he asked quietly. "You stood in front of 400 people, including my enemies, and rejected me. Do you understand what that looks like? What it means?" It means I said no. That's what it means. My anger surprises both of us. I exercise my right to refuse a marriage proposal from a man I've known for 6 months. 6 months, he repeats, and something dangerous flashes in his eyes. 6 months of dinners where I told you things I've never told anyone. 6 months of you looking at me like I was more than what everyone says I am. 6 months of me falling in love with a woman who teaches underprivileged kids and volunteers at soup kitchens and makes me want to be better than my father ever was. And you think that was nothing? The raw emotion in his voice cracks something in my chest. I've seen Lorenzo Moretti negotiate million-dollar deals without blinking. Watched him face down rivals with casual brutality. Heard stories about what he does to people who cross him. But I've never seen him like this. Vulnerable, hurt, almost human beneath the monster everyone fears. "It wasn't nothing," I whisper. "That's why I had to say no. Because it meant everything, Lorenzo. Too much. Your world, what you do, the violence. I can't. I won't." He crouches in front of me, bringing us eye level, and the movement is so unexpected I stop breathing. This close, I can see the exhaustion in his face, the fine lines around his eyes, the night's worth of stubble darkening his jaw. He hasn't slept. Neither have I. "My world," he says softly, "is the reason you have a world at all. Who do you think paid off your brother's gambling debts when the Russian mob came collecting? Who do you think arranged for your mother's cancer treatment at Sloan Kettering when your insurance denied the claims? Who do you think has had men watching your apartment every night for 5 months to make sure you stayed safe?" Ice floods my veins. "What are you talking about?" "Your brother owed $200,000 to Alexei Volkov. You know what the Russians do to people who can't pay? They don't just kill them, Isabella. They make examples, torture, mutilation, videos sent to family members." His jaw tightens. "I bought his debt, paid it off, made it disappear." The room spins. My brother Michael called me 3 months ago, crying, saying he'd gotten into trouble but It was handled now. He wouldn't tell me details. I assumed he'd borrowed money from our uncle, maybe sold his car. Never this. Never a mob debt. Never Lorenzo's intervention. You're lying, I breathe, but I know he's not. Lorenzo Moretti doesn't lie. It's one of the things that terrifies me about him. His brutal honesty. His refusal to pretend he's anything other than what he is. Your mother's medical bills, he continues relentlessly, totaled $1.3 million after insurance. The hospital called you personally to say an anonymous donor covered everything. That was me. The apartment you rent in Chelsea that somehow stayed affordable when everything around it doubled in price? I own the building. I kept your rent frozen. Each revelation hits like a physical blow. All those small miracles over the past months, the lucky breaks, the problems that solved themselves. None of it was luck. All of it was him. Why? The question comes out broken. Why would you do all that? Because from the first moment I saw you at that charity gala, arguing with some hedge fund asshole about income inequality, you were real. Everyone in my life wants something. Power, money, protection, connections. You wanted nothing except to make the world less cruel for people who have nothing. His hand lifts, hesitates, then cups my face with devastating gentleness. You looked at me like I was a man, not a monster. Like I had a choice in what I could become. No one has looked at me like that since my mother died. Tears burn my eyes. I won't let them fall. Can't let him see how deeply his words cut. How much I want to believe this is love and not manipulation. How much I've ached for him every night since I walked away. So you kidnapped me? I ask, voice sharp with betrayal. That's your solution? Prove you're not a monster by literally holding me captive? Something shifts in his expression. Regret, maybe, or resignation. I'm not holding you captive, Isabella. I'm giving you the choice you didn't have last night. What choice? There is no choice when I can't leave. You can leave. He stands, moves to the door, opens it. Beyond, I see a staircase leading up to daylight. No guards, no locked gates. Just freedom, apparently. Walk out that door right now, and you'll never see me again. I'll remove my men from your building, stop monitoring your family, disappear from your life completely. You'll be free. He pauses, and his next words drop like stones into deep water. But your brother's debt? It goes back to the Russians. Your mother's medical bills? The hospital will come collecting. Your rent? Market rate starting next month. Everything I protected you from comes back the moment you leave. The cruelty of it steals my breath. You're threatening my family? I'm giving you the truth. His voice hardens. This is my world, Isabella. Protection costs, safety costs, love costs. You wanted to say no? Fine. But understand what no means. It means you go back to fighting battles alone that you can't win. If you're loving this already, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is about to get even more intense. The choice sits before me like poison. Leave and condemn my family to ruin. Stay and condemn myself to a life I never wanted. There's no good option, no right answer. Just the reality of Lorenzo Moretti's world, where every decision carries consequences that ripple outward, destroying everything they touch. That's not love, I say quietly. That's ownership. No, that's survival. You want to know the difference between me and men like your ex-boyfriend? Marcus never protected you. He took you to nice restaurants, bought you flowers, said pretty words, but when his family found out he was dating a girl from Queens, whose father drove a taxi, he dropped you without a second thought. I know because I had him investigated before our second date. The accuracy of that assessment makes me flinch. Marcus, with his trust fund and Yale degree, who loved me right up until his mother suggested I wasn't suitable for their social circle. 3 years of my life ended with a text message. You had him investigated? I had everyone in your life investigated. your ex-boyfriend, your college roommate who borrows money she never pays back, your supervisor at the nonprofit who sexually harasses his staff. I know everything, Isabella. And unlike everyone else, I did something about it. Marcus got a visit that convinced him to move to California. Your roommate found a sudden windfall to pay you back with interest. Your supervisor got fired after an anonymous tip to the board. He counts off each intervention like they're gifts, not violations. You've been manipulating my life for months. The anger finally breaks through my shock, hot and clarifying, making decisions for me, controlling everything around me. And you think that's love? I think that's protection, he counters. I think that's me using the power I have to keep safe the one thing in this world that matters to me. You. I'm not a thing. No. His voice drops, dangerous and soft. You're everything. And last night you broke my heart in front of my enemies. Do you know what they're thinking right now? That Lorenzo Moretti is weak. That he can be refused, disrespected. That his woman can walk away without consequences. The underlying threat in his words chills me. So this is about your reputation? Your pride? This is about your safety. The explosion is sudden, controlled fury breaking through his calm facade. You rejected me in front of Dmitry Kozlov, who's been trying to move into my territory for 2 years, in front of Vincent Caruso, who thinks I'm too soft, because I don't deal in human trafficking, in front of every rival who wants to see me fall. By tomorrow, they'll test my weakness, and they'll test it through you, Isabella, through your family, through everyone you love. Understanding crashes over me like a wave. You're saying by rejecting you, I made myself a target? I'm saying by claiming you as mine 6 months ago, I made you a target. Rejecting me just took away the protection of my name. He runs a hand through his dark hair, the first crack in his perfect composure. I can't have men thinking they can take what's mine without consequences. Can't have rivals believing I'm vulnerable. Which means I need you to be my wife. Or I need you to be so convincingly removed from my life that no one bothers coming after you. The trap closes around me with crystal clarity. Stay or go, either option leads to loss. Stay and sacrifice my independence. Go and sacrifice my family's safety. There is no third choice. No escape hatch. Just the brutal reality of Lorenzo Moretti's world, where love is a commodity and safety comes at the price of freedom. How do I know you won't hurt me? The question barely makes it past my lips. Once I'm your wife, if I become a liability or disobey you, what stops you from... Nothing. The honesty is devastating. Nothing stops me except the fact that I would rather die than hurt you. But you don't know that. You can't know that. You've heard the stories. Lorenzo Moretti, the butcher of Brooklyn, the man who shot his own cousin for stealing territory, the monster who dissolved a rival's body in acid. All true. He takes a step closer. But you've also seen me cry at your mother's bedside when she told me I made you happy. Seen me spend 4 hours helping your students build a community garden because you mentioned they needed green space. Seen me be gentle, human, real. I don't know which version is true, I admit. Both, he says simply. I'm both. The question is whether you can love both versions. Love. The word hangs between us, heavy with implications. Do I love Lorenzo Moretti? I'm terrified of him, drawn to him, angry at him, aching for him. Is that love or Stockholm Syndrome? Is there a difference when he's been subtly controlling my life for months? If I agree, I say slowly, what happens? To us, I mean. What kind of marriage are we talking about? The real kind. His answer is immediate. Not for show, not a business arrangement. Real vows, real commitment. You become my wife in every sense of the word, my partner, the woman I trust with everything I am. And if I want to keep teaching, keep volunteering, then you keep teaching and volunteering with security, but you keep doing what makes you who you are. I don't want to change you, Isabella. I want to protect you while you change the world in small, beautiful ways. The picture he paints is seductive, dangerous, impossible. A life where I maintain my identity while married to a mafia boss. Where I teach children about kindness during the day and sleep beside a killer at night. Where love and violence coexist in the same breath, the same heartbeat, the same man. I need time, I whisper. I can't decide this right now. It's too much. You have until tomorrow night. The deadline is non-negotiable. I'm meeting with the 5 families tomorrow to discuss territorial disputes. They need to see you beside me. See that you chose me, that I'm not weak. After that, we announce our engagement properly. Society pages, press release, the works. And if I still say no tomorrow? His expression goes cold, distant, the monster sliding back into place over the man. Then I disappear from your life completely. Release your family from my protection. And you pray that my enemies are merciful because I won't be there to stop them. The cruelty of the ultimatum makes me want to scream, fight, run. But where would I run that his reach doesn't extend? Lorenzo Moretti owns half of Manhattan's underground. The other half fears him. There is no escape from a man who makes people disappear. Can I at least see my apartment? Get clothes? No. The single word is final. You stay here until you decide. Your brother brought some of your things earlier. He thinks you're on a surprise romantic getaway with me. I suggested he might want to stop gambling since his sister's future husband wouldn't be as forgiving as I've been. He agreed. The casual mention of threatening my brother sparks fresh anger. You told him? I told him enough to keep him smart. Michael loves you, Isabella. He cried when he realized his mistakes almost destroyed your life. Promised to get help. I'm paying for his therapy and his spot in Gamblers Anonymous. Even his cruelties come wrapped in care. Every manipulation serves a purpose. Every threat protects something else. It's exhausting trying to separate genuine affection from strategic control. Am I a person to him or a possession? Does he love me or what I represent? The question might not have an answer. I want to sleep, I say, suddenly exhausted. I need to think, and I can't do it with you, watching me like I'm going to vanish. You're in the room upstairs, second door on the right. There's a bathroom attached. Everything you need. I'll be in the office if you need me. He moves toward a different door, then pauses. Isabella? Last night when you said no, do you know what I did? I went home and destroyed my study, threw my desk through a window, put my fist through a wall, scared my men because they've never seen me lose control. He turns to face me. Then I sat in the broken glass and cried. Actually cried. Because losing you felt like dying, so I made a choice. I decided I'd rather be the villain who keeps you than the good man who lets you go. With that, he leaves. The door clicks shut behind him. I'm alone in the basement prison that isn't a prison, with a choice that isn't really a choice, and a love that might be obsession, or obsession that might be love. I don't know anymore. Don't know anything except that 24 hours ago, my life made sense. I was Isabella Russo, third grade teacher, volunteer coordinator, normal woman with normal problems. Now I'm the woman who rejected a mafia boss and got kidnapped for her trouble. The woman whose family he's used as leverage. The woman he claims to love while holding hostage. I climb the stairs on shaking legs. The second floor hallway is expensively decorated. Hardwood floors, crown molding. Art that probably costs more than I make in a year. The second door on the right opens to reveal a bedroom that looks like something from a luxury hotel. King-size bed with silk sheets, floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking what I now see is definitely Brooklyn. The East River glitters in the afternoon sun. On the bed, my favorite pajamas are laid out. The book I was reading sits on the nightstand. My phone charger is plugged in by the lamp. He thought of everything, planned every detail, made sure I'd be comfortable in my captivity. The realization makes me want to laugh and cry simultaneously. I lock the door, though I know it won't keep him out if he wants in. Nothing keeps Lorenzo Moretti out when he decides he wants something. I've learned that lesson well. The bathroom has my brand of shampoo, my face wash, my prescription moisturizer that costs $40 and I only buy when it's on sale. He knows me, has studied me, learned every detail of my life to better control it, or to better love me. I don't know. Can't tell. The line between love and obsession blurs when someone has the power to destroy your world. I strip off yesterday's clothes, the black dress I wore to the plaza, still wrinkled from when Lorenzo held me against him as I cried and told him I couldn't marry him. His scent still lingers in the fabric. Cedar and gunpowder, expensive cologne and danger. The shower scalding. I stand under the spray until my skin turns red, trying to wash away the confusion, the fear, the treacherous part of me that wants to say yes, that remembers how safe I felt in his arms, how seen, how cherished. No one has ever looked at me the way Lorenzo Moretti does, like I'm precious, irreplaceable, worth burning the world down for. Marcus looked at me like I was convenient. My college boyfriend looked at me like I was temporary. Lorenzo looks at me like I'm oxygen and he's drowning. Is that love? Or is it possession? The question circles endlessly. I'm toweling off when I hear voices downstairs. Male voices, low and intense. I crack the bedroom door open, listening. You can't keep her here, Lorenzo. This is insane, even for you. The voice is unfamiliar but authoritative. Older. She needs time to understand the situation, Tony. Lorenzo's response is calm. Too calm. The tone he uses before violence. I'm giving her that time. You're holding her hostage. There's a difference between courtship and kidnapping. She's free to leave. With her family's safety as collateral, that's not freedom, that's coercion. Tony, whoever he is, sounds genuinely concerned. What would you have done if Rosa had said no? The silence stretches so long I wonder if they've moved to another room. Then Lorenzo speaks, voice raw with emotion. Rosa never said no because I never gave her a choice worth refusing. I was 22 and stupid. Thought power meant forcing people into position. Learned better after she died hating me. Exactly. You learned better. So why are you making the same mistakes with this girl? Because I love her. The shout echoes up the stairs. Because every other woman I've met wanted the power, or the money, or the connections. Isabella wants none of it. She looked at me and saw a person, talked to me about books and philosophy and what it means to be good in a world that punishes goodness. She made me want to be better, Tony. Better than my father. Better than this life. Better than the monster everyone knows I am. The raw honesty in his voice cracks my heart open. I sink to the floor behind the door, listening to a man I've known for 6 months reveal himself to someone he trusts. So you kidnapped her. Tony's voice drips skepticism. Real romantic, boss. I'm protecting her from my enemies and giving her the information she needs to make an informed choice. She thinks I'm some romantic fantasy. Poetry and flowers and grand gestures. She doesn't understand that choosing me means choosing danger, constant threat. A life where her children will need bodyguards and her parents will never be truly safe. I need her to understand the cost before she pays it. And if she still says no, then I let her go and pray the Russians are quick about it. The casual acceptance of my potential death steals my breath. Lorenzo. I mean it, Tony. If she chooses to leave, I remove all protection. Let the consequences play out. Better she dies hating me than lives resenting me. The older man sighs heavily. You're your father's son, all right. Just as ruthless. Just as willing to sacrifice anything for what you want. No. Lorenzo's voice turns cold. My father would have forced her, threatened her directly, hurt people she loved until she complied. I'm giving her a choice and the truth. That's the difference. Is it, though? The question haunts me as their voices fade, moving to another part of the building. Is there a difference between direct threats and systemic coercion? Between holding a gun to my head and holding one to my family's future? The philosophy I teach my third graders seems inadequate for the moral complexity of Lorenzo Moretti's world. I crawl into the silk-sheeted bed, exhaustion finally overwhelming fear. My last thought before sleep claims me is that tomorrow I have to choose. Freedom or family, independence or safety, the woman I am or the woman Lorenzo needs me to be. There is no right answer, only consequences I'll live with for the rest of my life. However long that is. I wake to the smell of coffee and the sound of classical music drifting through the door. For one blissful moment, I forget where I am. Think I'm home in my Chelsea apartment, waking up for another day of teaching children about kindness and grammar. Then reality crashes back, the silk sheets, the locked door, the impossible choice waiting downstairs. I check my phone. It's 7 a.m. I slept for 16 hours straight, exhaustion finally claiming the debt my body was owed. There are 43 missed calls from my brother, Michael, 27 texts from my mother, a dozen voicemails from friends wondering where I disappeared to after the Plaza disaster, and one message from Lorenzo, time-stamped at 6 a.m. Breakfast is ready when you are. No pressure. Take your time. We have until tonight. Tonight. The deadline. The moment I have to stand beside him in front of the 5 families and pretend I chose this, or walk away and accept whatever comes next. My hands shake as I get dressed in the clothes he provided. Jeans that fit perfectly. A soft blue sweater in my favorite shade. Even my bra size is correct. The intimacy of his knowledge should disgust me. Instead, it triggers something uncomfortably close to desire. Downstairs, the warehouse has transformed. What looked like a gloomy prison last night reveals itself in daylight as an industrial loft. Exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, mixed with antique pieces that probably cost 6 figures each. It's beautiful, masculine, dangerous in its aesthetic the same way Lorenzo is dangerous in his beauty. He's in the kitchen, wearing dark jeans and a gray t-shirt that stretches across broad shoulders. No suit today. No armor. Just a man making breakfast in his safe house, looking almost normal if you ignore the gun holstered at his hip and the security monitors visible in the next room. You're awake. He doesn't turn around, somehow sensing my presence. I made coffee. Hazelnut creamer, 2 sugars, right? Right. I slide onto a bar stool at the kitchen island, watching him move with economical grace. For a man who commands an empire, he's surprisingly domestic. You cook? My mother insisted. Said a man who couldn't feed himself was a man who'd be controlled by whoever could. He plates eggs, toast, and bacon with a restaurant precision. She taught me everything. How to make sauce from scratch. How to tell when pasta is perfectly al dente. How to make a woman feel cherished through small gestures. The mention of his mother softened something in his profile. She died when you were 23, right? You mentioned it once. I remember the conversation, one of our early dates at a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy. He'd gotten quiet when the topic of family came up, revealed just enough to make him human without showing real vulnerability. Until last night, I'd never seen beneath the careful control. Cancer. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. He sets the plate in front of me, his gray eyes shadowed with old grief. She made me promise to find someone who'd challenge me, keep me honest, love me enough to call me on my bullshit. I thought I'd never find that person. Then you argued with Preston Matthews at the charity gala about whether poor people deserved health care. A laugh escapes despite everything. He said they should just get better jobs. The ignorance was breathtaking. You told him that poverty wasn't a moral failing and that his hedge fund profited off the same economic systems that kept people trapped. You were magnificent, fearless. You made a billionaire squirm. Lorenzo pours himself coffee, leaning against the counter. I knew in that moment I'd marry you. Just had to convince you first. By investigating my life and manipulating everything around me, the question comes out sharper than intended. By protecting you from threats you didn't know existed, while giving you space to be yourself. His correction is gentle but firm. Yes, I investigated you. Found out about your brother's gambling problem, your mother's medical crisis, your landlord trying to force you out through illegal rent increases. Found all the ways the world was trying to break you, and I fixed them. Without asking me. Would you have let me help if I'd asked? The question hangs unanswered because we both know the truth. I would have refused. Pride and independence would have forced me to handle my problems alone, even if handling them alone meant losing. That's who I am, who I've always been. The girl from Queens who made it through NYU on scholarships in spite, refusing help from anyone. Eat, Lorenzo commands softly. You barely touched the food at the plaza before everything went wrong. You need to eat. I take a bite of eggs, and they're perfect, creamy, seasoned exactly how I like them. Of course they are. He knows how I take my coffee, what size bra I wear, which authors I love, how I like my eggs. He's studied me like I'm a subject worth mastering. What did Tony mean last night? I asked between bites. When he said your father would have forced me? Lorenzo's expression shudders. You were listening. Your voice is Carrie. What did he mean? My father, he says slowly, choosing words carefully, didn't believe in courtship. When he wanted something, he took it, including my mother. She was 16 when he decided she'd be his wife. He was 32. Her family tried to refuse. He killed her father and 2 brothers, gave her a choice. Marry him or watch her mother and sisters die too. The casual horror of it makes my stomach turn. That's rape, kidnapping, murder. That's my father, Giacomo Moretti, the most feared man in New York for 40 years. He built this empire on blood and terror. Everyone who knew him feared him, including his wife, including his son. Lorenzo's jaw tightens. My mother lived 32 years in fear. Never knew a day without terror that he'd turn on her or me if we displeased him. She died hating him, and probably hating me for being too much like him. But you're not. I start then stop. Because isn't he? Didn't he kidnap me? Isn't he coercing me through threats to my family? I'm exactly like him, Lorenzo says flatly. Ruthless, violent, willing to do terrible things to get what I want. The difference is I'm trying to be better, trying to give you real choice even though every instinct says to just take what I want and deal with your hatred later. My father wouldn't have proposed. He would have married you without asking and killed anyone who objected. The brutal honesty is almost admirable. Almost. That's a low bar for decency, Lorenzo. I'm better than my father because I only coerced you instead of forcing you at gunpoint. Isn't the defense you think it is. Something flickers in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or amusement at my refusal to back down. You're right. It's not. But it's the truth. I'm a monster trying to be a man for you, Isabella. Some days I succeed. Most days I don't. What happens if I marry you and you stop trying? The question I've been afraid to ask finally emerges. What happens when the novelty wears off and I'm just another possession? Another thing you own? Then you'd have every right to leave. His answer surprises me. I'd hate it. I'd probably destroy half of Brooklyn in my rage, but I wouldn't stop you. Wouldn't hurt you. You'd have my protection for life even if you chose to end the marriage. I don't believe you. I know. He drains his coffee. That's the problem, isn't it? You can't trust me because everything I've done has been manipulation. Even when I'm being honest, you can't tell if it's strategy or truth. I've backed us into a corner where the only way out is faith. You have to have faith that I mean what I say. That I'll be the man I promise instead of the monster I am. Faith. Such a small word for such an impossible ask. How do I have faith in a man who dissolved someone's body in acid, who shot his own cousin, who just admitted he'd destroy half a city if I left him? The classical music shifts to something I recognize. Puccini, Nessun Dorma. The aria builds, swelling with emotion and impossible yearning. A prince singing about conquering through love. Lorenzo watches me recognize it, sees the understanding dawn. You were playing this at the Plaza, I realize, right before you proposed. I thought it was just the venue's background music. I requested it specifically. My mother used to sing it to me when I was a child. Said it was about a man willing to sacrifice everything for the woman he loved. I wanted you to hear it when I asked you to marry me. The romance of the gesture clashes violently with the coercion of the situation. You can't offset kidnapping with opera, Lorenzo. No, he agrees, but I can give you every piece of myself and hope it's enough. Hope that 6 months of showing you who I am counts more than 24 hours of showing you what I'm capable of. He moves around the island, close enough to touch, but not touching. I don't know how to be good at this, Isabella. I grew up watching my father control through fear. Every relationship I've had was transactional. Women who wanted status or money or protection. Then you came into my life wanting nothing except to argue about income inequality and quote Jane Austen at me. You made me feel human. The vulnerability in his voice is weapon grade, designed to crack my defenses. And it's working. God help me, it's working. I can feel my resolve weakening, my anger softening into something more dangerous. Understanding, maybe even forgiveness. If I agree, I say quietly, I need guarantees. Real ones, not just promises. Name them. His immediate agreement tells me he expected this. Probably planned for it. Has answers ready for every objection. My family's protection continues regardless of what happens between us. Divorce, death, whatever. They stay safe. Done. I'll have it written into my will. Your family receives protection and financial support from my estate in perpetuity. He doesn't hesitate. Next, I keep my job, keep my life. I'm not giving up teaching to be some trophy wife who lunches and plans charity galas. You teach at PS 123 in Queens. 4th grade this year, down from 5th grade last year because you requested the younger students. You arrive at 7:30 every morning, stay until 5 most nights. You spend your own money on classroom supplies because the school budget doesn't cover basics. You volunteer 3 Saturdays a month at the community center teaching adult literacy. He recites my schedule like it's memorized. Why would I want to change any of that? It's who you are. I fell in love with a teacher who cares more about her students than her own safety. Taking that away would be destroying what I love. The accuracy is disturbing. Also touching in a deeply fucked up way. You really do know everything about me. Everything public. I don't know what you think about in the shower. Don't know your childhood trauma beyond what's in records. Don't know if you want children or what you dream about. He pauses. I want to learn those things naturally, through conversations and time and the intimacy of marriage. I want you to tell me your secrets instead of me uncovering them. It's almost romantic. Would be romantic if we weren't having this conversation in his safe house after he kidnapped me. Context matters. I need time, I say again. Not just until tonight. Real time, months maybe, to get to know you without guns and threats and deadlines. Can you give me that? No. The answer is immediate, regretful, but final. I need you beside me tonight, Isabella. My enemies are circling. They smell blood in the water after your rejection. If you're not with me when I meet the 5 families, they'll interpret it as weakness. Will test me through violence. Some of that violence will target you whether you're with me or not, but at least as my wife, you'd have full protection of my organization. So I'm damned either way. You're in danger either way, he corrects. The question is whether you face that danger alone or with me beside you. The trap he's laid is perfect, brilliantly executed. Give me just enough information to make an informed choice while ensuring that every option leads back to him. He's not forcing me at gunpoint like his father would have. He's just making every alternative worse than submission. It's almost elegant in its cruelty. What happens at this meeting tonight? I need to understand what I'm walking into, what being beside him means. The 5 families gather once a month to discuss territorial disputes, negotiate treaties, divide spoils from major operations. It's medieval, honestly. 5 crime bosses sitting around a table pretending we're civilized while planning wars. His description is matter of fact. Tonight's meeting is particularly important because Dmitry Kozlov has been pushing into Brooklyn, taking over protection rackets, moving drugs through ports I control, recruiting my men with promises of better splits. He's testing how far he can push before I push back. And having me there proves what exactly? Proves I'm stable, focused, not emotionally compromised by your rejection. Men like Dmitry look for weakness, exploit any opening. You walking away from me at the plaza was a crack in my armor. You standing beside me tonight seals it closed. The calculated strategy behind romance makes me want to scream. So I'm a prop, a piece in your territorial chess game. You're my wife, he says simply. The woman I love, the person whose opinion matters more than any of those men's respect. But yes, you're also a strategic asset. In my world, everything is strategy. Love, loyalty, marriage, it's all leverage. I wish I could separate the two for you, but I can't. This is what marrying me means. You'll always be both the woman I cherish and the piece that keeps me strong. The honesty should repulse me. Instead, it's almost refreshing. No, pretty lies about how our love exists outside his world. Just the truth that being Lorenzo Moretti's wife means being part of his empire, whether I want to be or not. What do I have to do? At the meeting, I mean. Stand beside me. Let them see you chose me. Smile when appropriate. Let me touch you possessively without flinching. Play the role of devoted fiancé convincingly enough that no one questions whether your rejection was real or theater. His hand finally reaches out, cupping my face with the gentleness that always startles me. I know it's asking you to lie, to perform. I'm sorry for that. But I need them to believe you're mine, that I'm strong enough to keep what's mine. This story is getting intense, right? If you're as hooked as I am, drop an emoji in the comments and let me know what you think Isabella should do. The performance he's asking for is prostitution by another name, selling myself for protection, for family safety, for the illusion of choice in a situation where real choice doesn't exist. My mother would tell me to run. My feminist professors would be horrified. Every instinct screams that this is wrong, that I should refuse, that accepting his terms makes me complicit in my own oppression. But my brother's life hangs in the balance. My mother's health depends on treatment she can't afford without Lorenzo's intervention. The students I teach in a neighborhood where his protection keeps gang violence at bay. Everyone I love exists in the blast radius of my decision. If I do this, I say slowly, if I stand beside you tonight and play devoted fiancé, I need to know what happens next. Do we get engaged for real? Set a wedding date? What's the timeline? We're engaged for real the moment you agree. Wedding happens within 6 months because anything longer gives enemies time to plan disruptions. We do it properly. Big ceremony, all the families invited, society pages coverage. Make it impossible to undo without major political fallout. He's planned every detail, naturally. And the marriage itself? What does that look like day to day? You move into my penthouse in Manhattan, keep teaching, but with security detail that stays invisible. We have dinner together most nights, unless business interferes. Weekends are ours unless there's an emergency. You meet my associates, learn the families, understand the structure so you can navigate safely. In public, we're affectionate, touch often, demonstrate unity. In private, we're whatever we need to be. Partners, lovers, friends, whatever develops naturally. The picture he paints is almost domestic, almost normal if you ignore the security details and crime boss meetings. And sex? The question makes my cheeks burn, but I need to know. What are your expectations there? Something dark and hungry flashes in his eyes before control reasserts itself. I expect nothing you're not ready to give. Yes, I want you. I've wanted you since the moment you told Preston Matthews his yacht could house 40 homeless families. But I'm not my father. I don't take what isn't offered. We share a bed because married couples do, and because I sleep better knowing you're safe beside me. What happens in that bed is your choice. Tonight, next week, next year, whenever you're ready. The patience in his voice doesn't match the intensity of his gaze. He wants me. That much is clear. But he's willing to wait. It's almost gentlemanly if gentlemen typically kidnapped women and coerced them into marriage. I need to call my mother, I say, needing to hear her voice. Ground myself in something real outside this twisted negotiation. Tell her I'm okay. Of course. He pulls out his phone, dials, hands it to me. Tell her whatever you need to, but Isabella, don't tell her where you are. Don't ask her to call the police. They can't help you, and trying will only put her in danger. The threat beneath the permission is clear. I can call, but only on his terms. Only if I follow the script. My mother answers on the second ring, her voice tight with worry. Isabella? Baby, where are you? Michael said you're with Lorenzo, but you're not answering your phone, and I've been so worried. I'm fine, Mama. The lie comes easily, smoothly, surprising me with its fluency. Lorenzo surprised me with a weekend getaway. My phone died, and I forgot my charger. I'm sorry I worried you. A getaway? After what happened at the plaza? Isabella, everyone's talking about how you rejected his proposal in front of all those people. Are you sure you're okay? He's treating you well? The concern in her voice makes guilt twist in my stomach. He's treating me perfectly. We're talking things through, taking time to figure out what we want. I promise I'm safe, Mama. Lorenzo would never hurt me. The irony of reassuring my mother while being held in his safe house isn't lost on me. If you're sure, baby, you know I just want you happy. That man loves you. Anyone can see it. But love and happiness aren't always the same thing. Her wisdom cuts deep. I know, Mama. I'll call you tomorrow, okay? Tell Michael to stop worrying. Everything's fine. I end the call before she can ask more questions I can't answer honestly. Hand the phone back to Lorenzo. Thank you, I manage, for letting me talk to her. You don't need to thank me for basic decency, Isabella. Don't I? In your world, isn't every kindness a calculated move? Every permission a test of loyalty? The bitterness in my voice surprises us both. You're angry. He states it like a revelation. Yes, I'm angry. I'm furious that my life has become a negotiation, that my family's safety is leverage, that the man I was falling in love with turned out to be exactly what everyone warned me he was. A criminal, a manipulator, a monster in expensive suits who thinks he can buy people with protection and threats. The words pour out, months of repressed fear and confusion finally breaking through. I'm angry that you're right, that I can't leave without condemning people I love, that you've backed me into a corner so perfect that even agreeing feels like choice. I'm angry that part of me still wants you despite everything, that when you touch me, I forget to be terrified, that I'm standing in your safe house seriously considering marrying a man who dissolves someone's body in acid because the alternative is worse. The silence that follows my outburst is deafening. Lorenzo stands perfectly still, absorbing my rage without flinching. When he finally speaks, his voice is gentle. You should be angry. What I'm doing is monstrous. No pretty words or romantic gestures change that. I'm coercing you into marriage through threats to people you love. My father did the same to my mother. I swore I'd never become him, and here I am following his playbook. He runs a hand through his dark hair. The difference is I'm giving you the truth first, letting you see the monster before you marry it. My mother never had that chance. She learned what my father was after the wedding, when escape was impossible. You know now. You can make your choice with full information. Full information would include knowing I could leave without consequences. Full information includes knowing that the world I operate in doesn't allow that option. I'm being honest about the constraints. Your anger is justified, Isabella. I won't ask you to stop being angry. Won't expect you to perform happiness when you feel trapped. All I ask is that tonight, for 3 hours, you stand beside me and help me protect what's mine, including you. The exhaustion in his voice suggests he's carried this weight a long time. The burden of being his father's son, of inheriting an empire built on blood and trying to run it with something resembling morality. It's still evil, still wrong, but it's complicated evil, nuanced wrong, the kind that makes moral absolutes impossible. I need to shower again, I say finally. Think. Process. Can you give me until 5? Make the decision then? You have until 6. Meeting starts at 7. We need time to prepare, but I can give you until 6. He checks his watch. It's 8:30 now. You have 9.5 hours to decide the rest of your life. 9.5 hours. Such a short time for such a massive choice. But then, is more time really going to change anything? The constraints remain. The threats remain. My love for a man who might be using that love as a weapon remains. Okay, I whisper. 6 o'clock. Lorenzo nods, starts to leave, then turns back. Isabella, whatever you decide, I want you to know something. These 6 months with you have been the best of my life. You made me feel human, made me want to be better. If tonight you choose to walk away, I'll spend the rest of my life grateful for the time I had. Even if it ends with your hatred. The raw emotion in his voice cracks something in my chest. This man, this monster, this killer who dissolves bodies and shoots cousins, stands before me, offering genuine vulnerability. It shouldn't matter. Doesn't change what he's done, but it matters anyway. God help me, it matters. I retreat to the bedroom without responding, lock the door that won't keep him out if he wants in, and sink onto the bed. 9.5 hours to decide. I pull out my phone, the one he gave me back, and scroll through messages I can't answer honestly. My best friend Sophia asking if I'm okay. My principal wondering if I'll be in Monday. My mother's follow-up text saying she loves me no matter what I choose. Everyone concerned. Everyone caring. No one able to help. I open my photos, scrolling back through 6 months of memories. Lorenzo and me at the Museum of Modern Art, him explaining abstract expressionism with passion that made art history come alive. Dinner at his mother's favorite restaurant where he told me about her life, her dreams, her quiet suffering. The community center where he spent an entire Saturday helping my students build raised garden beds, getting dirt under his manicured nails without complaint. Movie nights where we argued about plot holes and character motivation. Walks through Central Park where he held my hand like it was precious. Conversations that stretched until dawn about everything and nothing. These memories are real. The man in these photos is real. But so is the man who kidnapped me. The man who used my family as leverage. The man whose empire is built on violence and whose hands have killed. Can both versions exist in the same person? Can I love the gentle book lover and accept the ruthless crime boss? Is compartmentalization a survival skill or self-delusion? I don't know. Don't have answers. Just 9 hours left to figure it out. The shower runs cold before I realize how long I've been standing under the spray, letting water pound sensation into numb skin. I dress in the clothes he provided, clothes that fit perfectly, because he knows my body better than most men I've actually slept with. The thought should disturb me. Instead, it triggers something complicated. Desire mixed with resentment, mixed with resignation. I'm 28 years old. I've had 3 serious relationships, none lasting longer than 2 years. Marcus, who left when his family disapproved. Jason before him, who cheated. David in college, who wanted different futures. None of them fought for me. None of them even tried. Lorenzo Moretti kidnapped me because losing me was unacceptable. It's fucked up. Completely insane. Also the most wanted I've ever felt. The contradiction makes my head spin. Downstairs, I find Lorenzo in what must be his office. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A massive desk covered in papers. Monitors showing security feeds. He's on the phone speaking rapid Italian, pacing before the windows. He's changed too. Black suit now. Black shirt. He looks every inch the Mafia boss. Dangerous. Magnetic. Completely in control of everything except maybe his feelings for me. He sees me in the doorway, wraps up his call quickly. You're early. It's only 2. I couldn't stop thinking, I admit. Decided more time wasn't going to change anything fundamental. The variables are what they are. And what are the variables as you see them? He gestures to a leather chair across from his desk. I sit, gathering thoughts that have been circling for hours. Variable 1, I love you. Or I think I do. 6 months isn't long, but feelings don't follow timelines. You make me feel seen in ways I've never felt before. Variable 2, you're a criminal who's done terrible things. That doesn't stop being true because I have feelings. Variable 3, my family's safety depends on choices I make. Their lives are leverage, whether you call it that or not. Variable 4, you're asking me to marry into a world I don't understand and can't escape. Once I'm in for life. There is no divorce without bloodshed. I tick off each point methodically. So the question becomes, can I live with loving a monster? Can I be complicit in your world? Can I accept protection that comes at the cost of autonomy? And the answer keeps coming back to the same place. I don't know. But I do know that walking away means people die. Staying means I become someone I never wanted to be. There's no good option, Lorenzo. Just degrees of bad. He listens without interrupting, his expression giving nothing away until I finish. Then he exhales slowly. You're right. There is no good option. I've made sure of that through months of careful manipulation. I'm genuinely sorry for that, Isabella. I wish I could be a better man for you, the kind who courted you properly without threats or coercion. But I'm not that man. I'm the man who saw something precious and grabbed it with bloody hands because I was too selfish to let you go. The honesty is devastating. So what now? Now you make your choice. Stand beside me tonight and become my wife, or walk out that door and face whatever comes next. I promise either way, I'll keep your family safe until my dying breath. That part was never dependent on your answer. They're protected because hurting them hurts you, and hurting you destroys me. So they're safe. Always. That leverage I used, I'm removing it. You're free to choose without that hanging over you. The declaration stuns me. You're removing the leverage? I'm removing it. Your family stays protected regardless. Your mother's medical care continues. Your brother's debts stay buried. Your students keep their garden, and the school gets the funding I anonymously provide. None of that changes based on what you choose right now. He stands, walks to the window, silhouette dark against afternoon light. I want you to marry me because you want to, because you love me despite what I am, because you choose me freely. If you can't do that, I don't want you forced. My father forced my mother, and it destroyed them both. I won't make the same mistake. The trap opens. The perfect manipulation reveals itself as something else, an actual choice. Freedom to walk away without consequences. For the first time since this nightmare began, I have agency, real agency, not coerced or leveraged or manipulated, just choice. Why now? I ask. Why remove the leverage now instead of before you kidnapped me? Because you needed to understand the stakes first. Needed to see my world clearly, know what you'd be choosing if you said yes. I couldn't let you make an uninformed decision based on romance and fairy tales. You needed to see the monster, see the violence, see the coercion, see what marriage to me actually means. Now you know. Now you can choose based on truth instead of fantasy. The strategy is brilliant, horrifying, possibly ethical in a deeply fucked up way. He showed me the worst of himself to ensure I'd choose him knowing everything, or choose to leave knowing everything. Either way, the choice is informed. "You're a bastard," I say quietly. Complete bastard. This whole thing was designed to strip away my illusions while giving me actual agency. You manipulated me into real freedom. I don't even know if I should thank you or hate you. Both, he suggests. Both is probably appropriate. I stand, walk to where he's silhouetted against the window. This close, I can smell his cologne, see the tension in his shoulders, the vulnerability beneath his control. This man, this monster, this complicated, terrible, beautiful man laid himself bare, showed me his worst so I could make an informed choice. It's the most ethical manipulation I've ever experienced. "I'll stand beside you tonight," I say quietly. "I'll play the devoted fiancé, help you prove strength to your enemies. But Lorenzo, after tonight, we renegotiate. We figure out what this marriage looks like when it's not based on coercion or deadlines or threats. We build something real or we end it. Are those terms acceptable?" His exhale sounds like prayer answered. Those terms are perfect. I'm getting so emotional over here. This story is hitting different. If you're feeling it too, let me know in the comments. Then we have a deal. I extend my hand formally, like we're negotiating a contract. Maybe we are. Maybe marriage is always a contract. Maybe the only difference is how honest you are about the terms. Lorenzo takes my hand, but instead of shaking it, he pulls me against him. The embrace is tight, desperate, relieved. His face buries in my hair. I can feel his heartbeat racing against my chest, betraying the calm facade. "Thank you," he whispers. "Thank you for giving me a chance, for choosing to see if this can work. I know I don't deserve it. Know I've handled this terribly. But I promise, Isabella, I'll spend every day proving you made the right choice." I don't answer. Can't promise that this will work or that I won't regret this decision. Can only hold on to him and hope that love is enough to bridge the gap between who I am and who I'll have to become to survive his world. Eventually he pulls back. "We should prepare. You'll need to dress appropriately for tonight. Lucia brought options." "Lucia?" "My cousin. She handles presentation issues." The hesitation tells me Lucia probably handles more than that. "She's in the guest room with dresses, jewelry, everything you'll need to look the part. Looking the part. Playing the role. Performing the devoted wife. It starts now." In the guest room, I find a woman who looks like she stepped out of Vogue Italia. Dark hair and a sleek updo, impeccable black suit. Eyes that assess me with professional calculation. "Isabella." Her voice carries a slight Italian accent, warm but evaluating. "I'm Lucia Moretti, Lorenzo's cousin, and occasionally his conscience, though he rarely listens. Let's make you look like a woman who conquered a Moretti heart." She gestures to several garment bags hanging in the room. "Tonight, you need to project power, elegance, untouchable beauty. The families need to see that Lorenzo's obsession is justified, that you're worth the chaos you've caused in his carefully ordered world. The assessment is clinical, not unkind." "How much do you know?" I ask. "About what happened. About why I'm here." "Everything." Lorenzo tells me everything because I'm one of 3 people he trusts completely. I know he proposed at the plaza. Know you rejected him spectacularly. Know he brought you here to convince you properly. She pulls out a deep red dress, holds it up to me. "I also know he's desperately in love with you and terrified you'll leave. So I'm here to help you look stunning so that when you stand beside him tonight, every man in that room understands why he'd burn Brooklyn for you. The romantic framing of kidnapping and coercion should bother me. Somehow Lucia makes it sound almost reasonable. Does it bother you?" I ask as she helps me into the dress. "What he does? The violence? The crime?" "It's the family business. has been for 4 generations. My grandfather worked with Lorenzo's grandfather. My father died working for Lorenzo's father. I grew up understanding that this is what we are, what we've always been. The Moretti family protects our own and eliminates threats. Simple as that. She zips the dress, stands back to evaluate. Perfect. You look like a queen. I turn to the mirror and barely recognize myself. The dress is blood red, form-fitting but elegant. Off-shoulder, showing collarbones and the curve of my neck. The woman looking back looks powerful, dangerous, nothing like the 3rd-grade teacher who volunteers at soup kitchens. I look like I belong in his world, I say, and I can't tell if that's triumph or tragedy. You look like you could rule his world, Lucia corrects. There's a difference. Lorenzo needs a partner, not an ornament. The families will test you. Judge whether you're worthy. You need to show them you're more than some mainland girl he's obsessed with. You're the woman strong enough to stand beside Lorenzo Moretti and not break. She produces jewelry, diamond earrings, a ruby necklace that probably costs 6 figures. These were Lorenzo's mother's. He asked me to bring them specifically. Sophia Moretti wore them the first time Giacomo brought her to a family meeting. She was terrified but hid it perfectly. Played the devoted wife while secretly running half of Giacomo's operations behind the scenes. She was brilliant, ruthless when necessary. Everything a Moretti wife needs to be. The comparison is clearly meant as encouragement. Instead, it highlights the impossible standard I'm being measured against. What if I can't do this? What if I stand beside him tonight and freeze? Then you freeze and Lorenzo handles it and you try again next time. He's not expecting perfection, Isabella. He's expecting effort. Show the families you're committed to trying, and that's enough. She finishes my hair, pulling it into an elegant updo that exposes my neck. There. Now you look like you could destroy men with a glance. I don't feel powerful. I feel like I'm wearing a costume, playing dress-up in a world I don't understand. But when Lorenzo sees me an hour later, the look in his eyes makes the performance feel worth it. You're beautiful, he breathes, taking in the transformation. Absolutely stunning. My mother would have loved you. Would have loved seeing her jewelry on someone worthy of wearing it. The sentiment is sweet, possessive, slightly disturbing. Are you ready? He asks, offering his arm. Ready as I'll be. I take his arm, let him lead me to the car waiting outside. The city passes in blurred lights as we drive to wherever this meeting happens. Lorenzo's hand stays on my knee the entire ride, grounding and claiming in equal measure. Remember, he says quietly, you don't have to speak unless spoken to. Just stand beside me, look confident, let me handle the politics. And if someone asks me a direct question, answer honestly but carefully. These men respect strength and honesty. They'll test you, try to make you uncomfortable. Don't let them see fear. His thumb strokes my knee. You're Isabella Russo, the woman who told Preston Matthews his yacht could house homeless families. You're fearless. Just be yourself. Being myself while pretending to be his devoted fiancé, the contradiction makes my head spin. The meeting location is an Italian restaurant in Little Italy that's closed to the public tonight. We enter through a back door, guards nodding respectfully as Lorenzo passes. They look at me with curiosity, calculation, assessing whether I'm a weakness or an asset. Inside, a private dining room has been set up with a massive table. 5 chairs, 5 men already seated, all turning as we enter. Lorenzo's hand tightens on my waist, claiming, protecting, warning them all simultaneously. Gentlemen, he says smoothly, thank you for waiting. I'd like to introduce my fiancée, Isabella Russo. The silence that follows is deafening. I can feel them evaluating, judging, deciding if I'm worth the chaos I've caused. One man, older with gray hair and cold eyes, speaks first. This is the woman who rejected you publicly? His Russian accent makes him Dmitry Kozlov, the rival pushing into Brooklyn. This is the woman I convinced to reconsider, Lorenzo corrects smoothly. A temporary misunderstanding resolved through conversation. As you can see, Isabella and I are very much in love and committed to our future together. His hand slides possessively around my waist, pulling me closer. Convenient, Dimitri says. Very convenient that she reconsidered just before this meeting. Convenient, Lorenzo agrees. Or perhaps inevitable. Sometimes people need time to process life-changing proposals. Isabella took that time, made her decision, and here we stand. Anything else you'd like to question about my personal life, Dimitri? Or can we discuss why you're moving product through my ports without permission? The shift from personal to business is seamless. The conversation devolves into territorial negotiations I barely follow. Numbers, percentages, territory divisions. Violence discussed as casually as stock portfolios. I stand beside Lorenzo, silent and observant, playing my role. Midway through, a younger man across the table addresses me directly. Miss Russo, what does a teacher think of her fiancé's business practices? The trap is obvious. Answer wrong and I'm naive. Answer honestly and I'm judgmental. I'm expected to fail. I think, I say carefully, choosing words that thread the needle, that the world is more complicated than classrooms prepare us for. I teach children that actions have consequences. Lorenzo operates in a world where that lesson is more literal than metaphorical. I don't pretend to understand all the complexities of his business, but I understand that he protects what's his, values loyalty, and operates by a code that makes sense in his context. Whether I agree with all of it is less important than whether I trust him, and I do. The answer satisfies no one completely, which means it was probably perfect. Lorenzo's hand squeezes my waist approvingly. The young man nods, seemingly satisfied. The meeting continues. Somewhere around hour 2, Dimitri makes his move. Your woman is beautiful, Lorenzo. Educated. Clearly devoted. But beauty and devotion don't protect territory. Your father would have handled Brooklyn's challenges differently, with more decisive action. The implication is clear. Lorenzo is weak, too soft, not ruthless enough. My father, Lorenzo says quietly, dangerously, ruled through fear and died alone, hated by everyone, including his family. I choose differently. I rule through loyalty and strategic thinking. The fact that I value Isabella doesn't make me weak. It makes me human, something my father forgot how to be. Humanity is expensive in our business. So is being a monster. My father paid that price too. The tension ratchets higher. I can feel violence simmering beneath polite conversation. Then Lorenzo does something unexpected. He stands, pulling me up with him. This meeting is over. Dimitri, you have 48 hours to remove your operations from my ports. After that, I respond with appropriate force. The rest of you, thank you for your time. Isabella and I have dinner reservations. Walking out mid-meeting is apparently not done. The shock on everyone's faces confirms it. But Lorenzo moves with absolute confidence, and I have no choice but to follow. In the car, I finally ask, "What was that? You just ended the meeting?" I made my point, showed them you and I are solid, showed them I'm confident enough to walk away from posturing. Now they'll spend the next week arguing about whether I played them or if I'm genuinely unconcerned about Dimitri's moves. Either way, I win. His strategy is multi-layered, exhausting, also brilliant in a Machiavellian way. Where are we actually going? Dinner. I promised you dinner reservations, so we're having dinner. There's a place in Greenwich Village you'll love. Small, quiet, no one from my world goes there. The normalcy of dinner feels surreal after the intensity of the meeting. But an hour later, we're sitting in a tiny Italian restaurant, just the two of us, eating carbonara and arguing about whether Jane Austen would have liked Mr. Darcy if she'd met him in real life. It's normal, easy, the version of Lorenzo I fell in love with. And for a few hours, I let myself believe this could work, that I can love the gentle book lover and coexist with the ruthless crime boss, that both versions can exist in the same man and I can find peace with the contradiction. On the drive back to the warehouse, Lorenzo breaks the comfortable silence. You were perfect tonight, handled Dimitri's test brilliantly, stood beside me without flinching. The families will respect you. Is that what matters? Their respect? In my world, yes. Respect keeps you safe. Keeps our children safe if we have them. Makes you untouchable. Children. The casual mention of future children makes everything real in a new way. We should talk about that, I say. About what marriage actually looks like. What we both want. We should, he agrees. But not tonight. Tonight, you've done enough. Survived your first family meeting. Let yourself rest. Back at the warehouse, exhaustion hits like a wave. The adrenaline that carried me through the evening crashes, leaving me shaky and drained. Lorenzo notices immediately. You should sleep. Guest room is yours as long as you need it. No pressure to share my space until you're ready. The patience in his voice is genuine, also possibly strategic. I can't tell anymore. Don't have energy to analyze. Thank you, I manage. For tonight. For removing the leverage earlier. For trying to give me real choice. Thank you for choosing to try. For giving me a chance I don't deserve. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it. He kisses my forehead gently. Sleep well, Isabella. Tomorrow we start figuring out what our life looks like. Tonight, just rest. I retreat to the guest room, strip off the red dress and expensive jewelry, and collapse into bed. My last thought before sleep claims me is that I just agreed to marry a mafia boss, committed to a life I never wanted, chose captivity over freedom, because freedom came with costs I couldn't pay. Tomorrow, I'll figure out if that makes me pragmatic or broken. Tonight, I just sleep. Wait until you see what happens next. This story isn't over yet. Keep watching. 3 weeks later, I'm standing in Lorenzo's penthouse overlooking Central Park, watching dawn break over Manhattan. The ring on my finger catches morning light. 3 carats of emerald-cut diamond, exactly what I once mentioned loving in passing conversation. Lorenzo remembers everything. It's endearing and terrifying in equal measure. Behind me, I hear him moving in the bedroom. The apartment has become familiar quickly. My books on his shelves, my coffee mug beside his in the kitchen, my student's artwork on his refrigerator. Small invasions of his space that he not only tolerates but encourages. We're getting married in 5 months. Big ceremony. All the families invited. Society pages coverage. The engagement announcement made headlines. Former teacher captures heart of elusive bachelor Lorenzo Moretti. The narrative is pure romance. No mention of kidnapping or coercion or impossible choices. Just a love story for public consumption. The private reality is more complicated. We're learning each other. How to coexist. How to love each other without losing ourselves. It's not easy. Some days I hate him for the position he put me in. Hate myself for accepting it. Other days, I remember why I fell in love with him in the first place. You're up early, Lorenzo says, joining me at the window. He's wearing pajama pants and nothing else. All muscled chest and casual intimacy. We haven't slept together yet. Share a bed, but nothing more. He's kept his promise. Waiting until I'm ready. Couldn't sleep, I admit. Thinking about everything. How fast life changed. Whether I made the right choice. Did you? The question is genuine, vulnerable. He asks it often. Needs reassurance that I'm here by choice, not just resignation. I don't know, I answer honestly. Some days yes, some days no. Today? Today I think maybe I did. Ask me tomorrow and the answer might change. Fair enough. He pulls me against him and I let myself melt into his warmth. As long as more days are yes than no, we'll figure it out. We stand in comfortable silence, watching the city wake up. My students will be arriving at school in 2 hours. I'll be there, teaching grammar and kindness, pretending my life is normal. Lorenzo will be doing whatever it is crime bosses do during daylight hours. Tonight, we'll have dinner together, share our days, argue about books or politics, or What to name our hypothetical future children? It's almost domestic, almost normal, almost a real marriage instead of one born from coercion and impossible choices. Isabella, Lorenzo says quietly. Yeah? Thank you for giving this a real chance, for not just going through the motions out of obligation. I know I backed you into a corner. No, this isn't how you wanted your life to go, but you're trying to make it real anyway. That means everything. I twist in his arms to face him. This man, this monster, this complicated, terrible, beautiful man who kidnapped me and gave me no choice and somehow made me believe I could love him anyway. I'm trying, I agree. Can't promise I'll always succeed. Can't promise I won't wake up one day and hate you for what you took from me. But I'm trying. That's all I ask. He kisses me, soft and sweet and full of promise. And for now, for this moment, it's enough. Maybe love isn't about perfect circumstances or clean choices. Maybe it's about trying anyway, about choosing to build something real from complicated foundations, about being human together even when the world around you is monstrous. I don't know if we'll make it. Don't know if love is enough to bridge the gap between who I was and who I'm becoming. But I'm going to try. For better or worse, I'm going to try. Did this story touch your heart? Did Isabella make the right choice? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more emotionally gripping romance stories. Thank you for being here with me today.